Hi, I'm Kristin.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
We're readers and writers.
We're sci-fi and fantasy fans, and this is the best of all worlds. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. Today we're talking about a topic that is quite controversial. People have some strong opinions about it, and I am no exception. I have very strong opinions about this topic, and actually I can get a little emotional, so hopefully Kristin can be our nice calm waters as we explore this topic.
Yeah, that's my goal, to keep everyone friendly and chill, and we respect both sides of this debate if people prefer one or the other. But anyway, what is our topic today?
Yeah, so our topic is about the difference between audiobook and physical reading and whether or not audiobooks even count as reading. And I'm just going to say my opinion at the start. Yes, audiobooks count as reading. You are engaging with the exact same story. It's just rather than reading the words with your eyeballs, you are hearing the words with your ear holes, but the same process is happening either way, which is that you're engaging with a story, you're understanding the words, you're getting introduced to new vocabulary all the time, and your brain is literally going through the exact same processes. There have been studies repeatedly done about this. It doesn't take long to find a Harvard article about how audiobooks are doing the same thing for your brain. I am of the strong opinion that there is very little difference in terms of outcome for reading, and for people to have the opinion that audiobooks are not reading, I wonder if they've even tried an audiobook.
Yeah. I may not feel as strongly about it, but I 100% count audiobooks as reading. Like, it's the same content. It's just whether you're receiving it through your eyes or through your ears, but you're still processing words.
Exactly.
It's still the same words. There's differences. There's strengths and weaknesses of both, and they're both good, and I like to do them both at the same time because honestly, like, it helps me read more when I can read in different formats, especially since I am a writer and I spend a lot of time reading my own words on a computer screen. I'm like, I cannot do ebooks. So if I'm going to be reading someone else's book, it has to be not on a computer screen. So it's either going to be a physical book or an audiobook. So I will do both.
Yeah, I wish that I also could do ebooks, and I've done a few. Like, I read Jurassic Park as an ebook. There's definitely books that I have done as ebook, but for me, it's a lot more difficult to maintain motivation reading an ebook. And I don't know why. I mean, it should logically be one of the more, like, sustainable methods of, getting stories into your brain. But for whatever reason, I also struggle with ebooks. But some people I know only read ebooks, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, ebooks are completely valid. It's just the amount of time I spend staring at words on a screen of my own books. I simply do not have any brain power left to stare at words on a screen for someone else's books, unless that's the only format they come in which case I will read an ebook if I can't get it in any other format. But I prefer other formats.
Yeah, maybe that's like both of our reason, because we're both like, we're office jobs, so we spend most of our time staring at screens, and then we come home, our main hobby is writing, so we're staring at screens even more.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about ebooks today. So we're here to talk about audiobooks and physical books. So to kind of go through the pros and cons of each, we're going to first start out with physical books. What are the advantages that those have over audiobooks? And then move on to what are the advantages that audiobooks have over physical books. And then just talk about what are they equal in? Like, what is equally good no matter which way you're consuming your story. So
absolutely. So physical books, I think it goes without saying, a lot of the pros of physical books could also be added to ebooks, though there are some unique pros to a physical book that ebooks can't quite hold a candle to. But I think for me, the number one strength of a physical book is that I can read it a whole lot faster. My eyes move and I can read a whole lot faster than I can listen.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel this too. Like, I have noticed that I cannot do like long, chunky, epic fantasies in audiobooks because when I'm reading a physical book, I am skimming the heck out of all the unnecessary descriptions. And in the audiobook, I'm forced to sit there and listen to them. And I'm like, I zoned out and then I lose it when we're actually supposed to be talking about something important. I'm like, oh, wait, I was supposed to start focusing again. Oh no, where are we? So in cases like that where it's just like a really big like chonky book and there's stuff that I could easily skim like and not miss anything, physical book is far superior.
No, that is definitely an advantage. You can skim read. I know for me, like my main skim read is like, okay, I read the first sentence, and if I can tell it's a description paragraph, I'll just kind of look for some keywords and then I'll move on and just try to get to more dialogue or more action. But when you're listening to an audiobook, that's not been a huge issue for me. But I also don't listen or read a lot of epic fantasy, minus my recent excursions into Wheel of Time.
Yeah, fair enough. Like a lot of the audiobooks I do listen to are not epic fantasy. I like
Right.
mysteries in audiobook. I like fast-paced stories in audiobook or nonfictions,
Oh,
weirdly enough.
interesting.
Like that's my go-to format for nonfiction is an audiobook, but we'll
Yeah.
get to that later. Right now we're talking about physical books. This is going to be a disjointed conversation. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it will be. I think it's hard not to go back and forth because it's a comparison conversation in general, but I think for me, one of the biggest strengths of a physical book that I can't get with either ebook or audiobook is the ability to quickly look back because for me I'm a very visual person. So when
Yes.
I read something, I know if it was on the left or right side of the book. I know approximately how deep into the book it was. So if I'm like, okay, I remember this name. Did it happen in this chapter? I can flip physically back and look because I know approximately like what part of the page, how far into the page it was, and I can find that scene pretty effectively. And you can obviously annotate in a physical book, so you can write notes as well in the book, whether that's on stickies or if you write in the margins, whatever your annotation method is. You can write directly on it, which also helps with finding specific parts. So there's definitely that advantage of like having an easier time finding a specific quote or text, and also being able to compare details, which is incredibly valuable in either longer stories or like mysteries where you're like, oh my gosh, was this person all the time? You can like flip back really quickly and check.
That was definitely one of the things I had on
Okay,
my list for
good.
physical books. So you are not alone. Like, I do like the ability to be able to like flip back and just like, if I was skimming something, I'm like, oh wait, I was supposed to pay attention to that. I can just look back quickly and be like,
Right.
ah, yes, that's what it was. Or if it's like, I feel like this came up earlier, I can flip back and I can find it. Whereas that's the one disadvantage of heavily reading my mysteries and thrillers in audiobook form
Yeah.
is if I miss the clue, I miss the clue.
Yeah,
It's too
it's
late.
way too awkward to go back in an audiobook unless you were paying attention to the exact time or chapter that something happened in. It's very hard to go back and find something specific with an audiobook. It's not worth the effort.
Yeah. And the other thing that really sticks out to me, which is more of a petty thing than an actual like complaint, but I like to write reviews of every book I read. And my gosh, when I listen to an audiobook, I never know how to spell the characters'
Ah.
names. When you read a physical book, you know how to spell
It's true.
everything and you can write about it and not come across looking super silly because you spelled the character's name completely wrong. That is the struggle. That is the real struggle. Is like I'm writing this review. I'm like I probably spelled 5 different names wrong in this review, and
That's
it's
so
I don't
funny.
know because I've never seen the physical words on a
Oh no, I
page.
100% look them up. But I agree that being able to spell the names or the names of places, stuff like that, like I would have never spelled Egwene's name correctly if I hadn't seen it written out.
Oh my
Or
gosh.
Nynaeve, like those are not spelled how I would have spelled them just by sound.
Oh my gosh. And let me tell you, I did not know how to pronounce Egwene's name right. being a book reader first.
I can see why, because the spelling does not match the pronunciation.
How did I think it was like pronounced? I think it was like Edgewin is
that
how I
sounds
thought
right.
it was pronounced. Nope.
Yeah.
That is not it. That is not it.
Yeah, spelling is definitely a bonus, especially when you're looking up new words. So one of the pros and cons of a physical book is when you get a new word that you've never seen before. At least for me, I usually stop reading and I have to look it up. I can't move forward. Whereas with an audiobook, it's easier to guess based on context for me because I'm hearing it and I'm hearing the enunciation and like maybe I've heard the word before. Like the first time I read Annihilation, I went to my German teacher and I was like, hey, this word, annihilation, what does it mean? That's definitely like being able to see the spelling of the word. I will never forget how to spell annihilation. Not ever again in my life will I ever forget how to spell or pronounce it because I had that awkward moment where I had to stop reading, ask somebody what it was, get a slight chuckle out of them, and then, be told the truth. So I do think that one of the other advantages is kind of like vocabulary growth because, yeah, in an audiobook, you're going to be exposed to new vocabulary, but for me, in a physical book, it usually makes me stop to look up the word before I move on. And in an ebook, it's even easier. You can just press and hold the word, and then you get a definition, which is really valuable as well.
Man, you have a much more patience for looking things up than I do. I just keep going. I am not looking up anything unless I absolutely have to.
Oh, I cannot stop myself. I need to. Like, as soon as the itch is in my brain, it takes over and I can't focus on the book. I have to look it up. So I guess pro and a con of a physical book. It allows you to learn your vocabulary a little bit better, but also, in the case of me, it might just stop your reading experience altogether. The other advantage that I really like of a physical book that is only a physical book feature is how progress feels. Like, the feeling when you're getting into the last quarter of the book, you're like, oh yeah. Or when you can just see, I read this chunk of the book. Like, that's super satisfying and cannot be replicated with an audiobook or an ebook. Like, yeah, you can see your percentage bars, yeah, whatever, but there's not quite that same, at least for me, level of satisfaction of seeing how much I've read.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And you actually made me think of one last thing that is far superior on physical books is that they can be pretty. And sometimes there's just the satisfaction of just having a bunch of really cool looking books on your shelf and you can just walk past and like, look at all these books. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's almost like an interior decoration thing.
That's such a good point. And actually, I was just at a bookstore yesterday and I am so in love with the fact that this is becoming popular, and I just feel like it should be a default of books, but when the end of the pages is painted.
Oh, yeah, sprayed edges.
I love that.
I do
so
love
much.
Sprayed edges.
I want every book like this.
Some people laugh at this trend, I know, but I love a good sprayed edge.
Call me basic. I don't care. I love it so much. I just want... I really love those channels where people paint on their books. So I'm just a huge fan of painted edges. Like, I just think that's such a beautiful way to honor a book. So I'm a fan of it. Maybe it's cliche. If you don't like it, that's fair. I can understand. To each their own. For me, I'm a big fan.
Yes, same. It's like combining books and art, and I like both of these things. So why not?
Exactly. And there is something to be said about shopping for a book by its cover. I mean, I know you're not supposed to, but I do it.
Yeah, it's a combination of both. It's like, okay, do I want to read this book? Yes. Does it have a pretty cover? Yes. Okay, I'm sold.
Yeah. Cover attracts me, description sells me. So the cover is absolutely important. But with all that being said, I guess it's a good time to go ahead and flip into the strengths of audiobooks. So what is a strength that you find from audiobooks?
Well, I already kind of brought it up, but it's the reverse of being able to spell everything when you read a physical book. It's you're able to pronounce everything when you listen to an audiobook. Because you're actually hearing a narrator say all the names, hopefully in the correct pronunciation that the author intended. And that is just, it really helps when you're trying to talk about a book out loud, because you're like, okay, I know I'm saying this right because
Exactly.
that's what the narrator said, so they must know what they're talking about.
That is a huge advantage, and sometimes you can tell if people have only ever read the book because they'll say the name in such like a strange way, and you'll be like, you mean like we were talking about with Egwene, like Egwene? You mean
Yeah.
Egwene?
Yeah. Yeah, Wheel of Time is especially notorious. Like the names are wild and very hard to pronounce. And like the only way I learned how to pronounce them was because I listened to a bunch of people on YouTube talking about Wheel of Time, and then I realized that I was
Yeah.
pronouncing things horribly wrong.
But the same can be said about mispronunciation within the audiobook, and one of my favorite examples for this is Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. The audiobook narrator says grimace instead of grimace.
Oh
And that is the
no.
only time I've ever heard an audiobook narrator say grimace. And he said it every time he said the word. It was a grimace on their face. He grimaced. Grimace. I made a compilation of all the grimaces from that audiobook because I just thought it was so, it took me out of the story. The pronunciation was so strange. But on the vein of pronunciation, the personality that can be infused into the voice is incredibly... There's so much potential in an audiobook. And for me, I'm actually not very audio imagination savvy. Like, I can't really imagine different voices. They're all just basically my voice in my head. As much as I try, my audio imagination is very low. So hearing an audiobook, like for example the Dresden Files, I listened to exclusively the audiobooks for that series. And I tried reading the physical books, I just couldn't because I couldn't get his voice in my head. And like the little things that the narrator did, like sighs or like, exasperation in his voice or sarcasm in the voice that you just can't quite get off just the written word, that it comes from the acting of the audiobook narrator.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely the number one thing that I think audiobooks have on physical books is just, yeah, like the acting performance can be like so immersive and like lend a depth to the characters that you might not get just imagining it yourself. Like you're getting this from a professional who really knows how to inhabit the characters and maybe even has talked to the author about like how to portray them, and so you're getting like a very, if the narrator is done well, you're getting a very authentic like version of what these characters are meant to be. And I especially, this is the reason why I love audiobooks for a couple of specific things. Like I love them for like Agatha Christie murder mysteries because they always have this cast of colorful characters. And it's perfect for an audiobook narrator because they will play all the different characters and do all the voices and bring such like drama to it. That's an excellent thing. And then things like the Dresden Files or stories that are more like have a lot of a distinctive voice to them. I love that in an audiobook too because the narrator can really bring that distinctive voice to life, and probably a lot better than I ever could in my own mind.
Yeah, I think just in general, first person can be better in an audiobook format. And I was just talking to one of our mutual friends yesterday, and she hates first person. We've mentioned this before in our conversation about POV, but this girl hates first person, but she can stomach it when it's an audiobook because it's being told to her by the person. Like there's like a voice to the first person character that she can separate herself a little bit more easily. Because when she's reading it, she's like, no, I'm not doing these things. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not opening the door. I'm not doing these things. But when it's an audiobook, she can separate and hear like, oh, the person that's saying the story is the one that's opening it. So it's easier to digest a first-person story for her in audiobook. And that's pretty much the only way she'll read a first-person story.
I do agree. Like, I think a first-person story, especially one with a very distinctive voice, really works well
Yeah.
in audiobook.
Exactly, especially like, example, Dresden. I think also the Dungeon Crawler Carl, I know you haven't had the chance to experience this, but I really hope that you can at some point, because the voice actor, and I've seen posts online where they're like, how does this guy even do it? The way that he can make such distinctive different voices for the characters, it makes the story that much more immersive and fun. Like his Carl kind of sounds a little bit like Kronk from Emperor's New Groove. Then you've got Donut, who's this really like hoity-toity cat. Then you've got the sarcastic AI system. Then you've got all these other characters that come in, and it doesn't feel like one guy reading it. It feels like a bunch of different characters. So you can see some really cool talent in audiobook narration. Like really cool talent.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I really like about audiobooks, and I know that this is contentious because some people say this is the exact reason they can't do audiobooks. I have ADHD, so for me, I always need to do something. So before I was listening to audiobooks, I was listening to YouTube videos of people talking or like podcasts, that kind of stuff. So I was already listening to things before I switched over to books. And it's actually like while I'm doing menial tasks. So I can't multitask when I'm doing something that takes any level of brain power. So I can't audiobook and like do work, for example. I could never do that. But I can audiobook while I do the dishes, or while I cook my breakfast, or when I take a walk, or when I'm gardening, or like, tasks that take low level of thought process, but high level of physical activity.
Yeah. No, I definitely love to like use an audiobook for like if I'm doing the dishes or cooking something or folding laundry or something that I would normally not really like doing because my brain likes to be occupied like 24/7. So unless I have something really interesting to think about that I can just occupy myself, which is probably more often than the average person, an audiobook really helps to keep me mentally stimulated when I'm doing something utterly boring with my hands.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's like keeping you mentally stimulated. It's just like maybe good for anyone with ADHD, but I don't know. I've definitely heard ADHD people who say they can't do audiobooks because they can't focus on them. So I guess it's like kind of
Yeah.
up to each person.
I feel like for me, like I actually almost always have to be doing something else while I'm listening to an audiobook. Like I cannot just sit and
Exactly.
listen. I have to be doing something and listening. Then I can pay attention.
I am the exact same way. And I think for me, something I wanted to touch on and bring up about audiobooks is when people are like, audiobooks aren't reading, well, writing and stories are a response to something that has existed in humankind for a very long time, which is the concept of storytelling. Storytelling is a human behavior that has existed long before the written word ever did. Humans pass down stories as a means of helping the future generations, whether these stories were moral or whether they were about like, which plants are safe or whatever. These stories existed for a reason and they were passed down from generation to generation. So I actually think that being elitist towards audiobooks is counterintuitive because at the end of the day, physical books are an evolution to make those stories more permanent than they were in the audible form. So, yeah, I feel like it's kind of weird that people are anti-audiobook in my opinion, but
I think it depends on what they value.
right.
Because for me, I value the story.
Right.
I don't care what medium the story is being expressed in. It can be an audiobook, it can be a physical book with words, it can be a movie, it can be a video game. Like, all of these are
Right.
very valid ways of telling a story. And if you're telling a good story, I don't really care which way you told it, as long as it was compelling and interesting and deep, and I took something like out of it that I like learned something in the process.
I almost wonder if the hate towards audiobooks is just more of like a lack of awareness or maybe lack of interest in it, which is fine. Like maybe audiobooks don't work for you, But there is, like, again, scientifically, there is no difference realistically in how your brain is responding to that.
I think all of this really comes down, I think it's honestly less the conversation about, oh, are audiobooks better? Are physical books better? I think the real conversation that's being had on the internet is about performative reading and how people who listen to audiobooks are cheating in their performative
Right.
reading because they can read more by listening to audiobooks, which really, in the end, the audiobook's not the problem. The problem is that people are defining their sense of self-worth by the number
Absolutely.
of books they can read in a year, or they're being offended that other people are doing
Right.
that. And I feel like that's just an ultimately unproductive
It is.
conversation. Like, it's absolutely cool if you can read a lot of books, but that should not define anyone's worth as a person. That's
Yeah.
people have extenuating circumstances why they can or cannot read that many books, and it's okay. Everyone has different lives.
Exactly. One of my favorite booktubers made a really great video about this a couple years ago. And she made a video which was all about how she can read so fast. We're talking a woman who reads like 15 books a month. And she basically laid it out like that's her main hobby. Like, she will listen to audiobooks or read books while she's working out. She will read them while she's sitting around her house. She will read them while she's on a break at work. Like, she'll just fit reading into every free space of time in her life. She brings a book with her everywhere she goes. Whereas, some people have a bunch of, I'll talk about myself. I have a lot of different hobbies, not just reading. I like drawing, I like reading, I like writing, I like playing video games, I like hanging out with people. So I have a lot of different things that I want to do. So I don't think I'll ever be a person that reads 100 books a year. Like, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Yeah. There was one year I think I got to like maybe like 70 or something, and
That's
I don't
good.
think I'm ever getting higher than that. Like I was reading pretty heavily, but especially when I'm writing, like it is so much harder for me to read at least physical books when I'm writing a novel because so much of my thought process is going into my
Exactly.
own characters and my own story and my own world that I don't really have a lot of room in there for other people's stories and worlds to like permeate my brain.
I think the most I've ever read is something like 40 books, maybe, in a year. And I felt like, holy moly, I've read a lot of books this year.
Yeah. No, I think it was during COVID that I read the most books, and I was like, yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. COVID is when I got back into reading, but I think it was like 2022 that I read the most books. I'd have to look to be sure, but there was a time when I read a ton of books and I was just on a reading frenzy. And now it's just more like, it's just habitual at this point to read books. I just don't stop. I'm just always, like, it's just part of my routine now to read books. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many books you read. Like, the level of excitement I get when my partner is like, I read a couple chapters of 1984. I'm like, you're reading!
Yes, I'm getting my husband into reading too, and it's fun.
Yeah, but like, he'll never read at the same level as me. He can't even do audiobooks because he can't focus on them. He literally cannot focus on an audiobook, let alone multitask. So for him, he has to be in a place where he can focus on the physical book. And he'll read fairly quickly once he gets going, but he needs to focus on a physical book. And that's totally fine. And not everyone has to read 20, 30 books a year. It's okay if you read 2 books in a year. It's okay if you read no books in a year. But I would love for you to read books. And if you're listening to us, you probably do read, or at least have some interest in reading, I would think.
Otherwise, that would be a little weird that you're here, but hey,
Little.
we appreciate you anyway.
Exactly.
Welcome.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like a preference, right? Like, there's not a huge difference in how they work. There's advantages of each, for sure. I like doing both. Do I do audiobooks more right now with my lifestyle? Yeah. Am I trying to brag about how many books I've read to anyone? No.
Yeah, no, I would not win a bragging contest if I tried to brag how many books I've read because it's not really that many
Right.
compared to a lot of people.
Yeah,
So,
my romance reading friends, man, those people I swear read the most books. they almost all read an average of 50 books a year. And I'm like, how are you reading so many? But I guess they're just really into them. I don't know.
Yeah. And I feel like romances are also quicker reads. Like when I'm reading more like mysteries and thrillers, I feel like I get through more books as
That's true.
well. It's when I'm reading the chunky fantasies that I'm like, yep, nope.
Well, when they're
This is
1,000
not going to go
pages.
quickly.
Though I will say, like, if I had my ideal situation, it would be to go back and forth between physical and audio. Because then I could get the visual of where the words are on the page and, like, how far in they are. So, like, for example, there's a book I read called Paradise 1 that I read audio and physical. And I read that book in 3 days. It's 700 pages. It's a chunker. But switching back and forth allowed me to keep the momentum in reading even while I was doing other things. So that's my ideal way of reading, is a mixture, but I don't usually get that luxury.
I don't typically do a mixture. I'll usually do one or the other, but I mean, I like them both. I just depends on what I need, what my particular, what freedom I have in my life to be able to sit down and read a physical book, or do I need to, something more portable as an audiobook? It just depends. And it depends on what genre it is too, because I've discovered that, yeah, genre is
It does
important
matter.
because some things are great as audiobooks and some things I just cannot focus on.
Yeah, some things are just too dense to get as an audiobook. Like, it's too much information and you just can't keep track of all the details. Or, in the case of, fantasy, maybe you want to skip some of the details.
But some people probably yell at me, the sacrilegious that I skim the details in epic fantasies. But listen, I don't care about details in real life. Why would I care about it in a fantasy book?
Exactly. There's a reason we both walk into walls, okay? Like, oh, how do you think it happens? You think we're that aware of our physical reality?
Yeah. See, I feel like all those YA protagonists that people make fun of for like, oh, their only flaw is being clumsy, is because people like us who are authors, we are just clumsy. But yeah, I guess back to audiobooks and physical books. We've kind of touched on it throughout our whole discussion, but I think the things that they have in common that they're both excellent at is they can both tell a good story. Like the heart of the story is there no matter where you put it. You got the characters, you got the plot, you got the themes, you even have the words themselves are all there, and you really get the whole experience just in a little bit different way, just depending on what your preference is.
And that's exactly it. At the end of the day, it's literally just a preference. You're gonna get a good story, you're gonna have a good experience, you're gonna be able to talk about the story in full detail with people. If you missed a detail, like, it happens in physical or audiobooks. There are just times you just didn't catch details. That's okay. You can still have a conversation with someone about a book, and one of my favorite things is talking about books, so I don't care how you read it. Audiobook, physical book, ebook, I don't care. What I care about is now we can discuss this awesome story and what happened and these cool characters and,
Exactly. The audiobook listeners can teach the physical book readers how to pronounce stuff,
Yes.
and the physical book readers can show the audiobook listeners how to spell
Yes,
the
like
names.
Egwene.
And everyone's better off. We're all benefiting.
Yes, 100%. We're all benefiting. Just look at it as they're bringing strengths to the table, you're bringing strengths to the table. It is win, win, win. And at the end of the day, the author doesn't care how you read their book. They just care that you read it and that you had a good time reading it. That's all they care about.
Yeah.
They do not care what medium you used to read their book or whether or not it was cheating. Like,
And if they do, that's weird. And I say that as an author.
That is weird, and I just have to think it's rare. Like, how many people are going to be that, like, hung up on, like, oh, why even make an audiobook if that's how you feel? Like, even if your publisher is like, we need an audiobook, you could deny it, you could decline it if you felt that strongly about your book. I'm just saying. I don't think it's a common take amongst authors at all.
Say, we support audiobooks.
Yes, we support authors who have written awesome stories, whether we hear it or see it. We've got the story, and that's what matters.
Yep, and we support the voice actors who do excellent work on audiobooks too.
Yes.
They're also putting their own art out there and doing a great job.
Yeah, who's the narrator for Dungeon Crawler? Just a shout out to James Marsden and Jeff Hayes, man. They are both phenomenal audiobook narrators. Just phenomenal.
Yes, there's so many good ones, but yeah.
But anyway, tell us all your thoughts. Tell us where we're wrong. I'm sure you have already, but if you haven't, please tell us your disagreements, your agreements, all your thoughts and feelings. But please just remember to be respectful.
Yes, always be respectful. And if you have a book that you're like, absolutely, like this one you should listen to as an audiobook, let us know, because I'd be curious to find out. Always looking for new things to pick up.
Yes. Well, thank you all so much for listening, and like, subscribe, and we will see you next time.
See you later.